fitness movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com. So today we're going to be talking about our athlete camp that's coming up here in January of 2023. It's going to be on the 21st and 22nd at Lumber Capital Athletics, which is the gym that I co-own here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. So we're going to get people from obviously our community involved as much as we can, but obviously Zor Fitness, that's like who we're gearing this towards. So it's a lot of our individual design clients and people who just care a lot about their performance in CrossFit. This is geared to competitive athletes for people who, are taking their performance seriously and have a little bit more experience than just like the average class goer, right? It's really geared towards people who are specifically looking to compete in the sport of fitness. So I will link to it in the show notes if people are curious, but zorfitness.com/camp. So you can get more information on the actual camp there. And obviously a sign up link as well. If you are one of our clients or a member of Lumber Capital Athletics, you get a discount code. So check out the bottom there to be able to apply that and make sure you reserve your spot because we're only taking 20 people. We want to make sure that we're keeping a good ratio of coach to athlete going on. So welcome, Chris. We're going to kind of walk down through a breakdown of our sessions. We got 4 sessions, an AM and a PM on day 1, Saturday, and then same thing for Sunday. We'll have some lunch and learns in there as well as just some time to hang out with everybody. But we actually want to walk through the sessions of what we're going to be going over, the teaching, the sort of points of performance, and just kind of like overall, like what we're thinking of the plan for the weekend. So your session 1 lead. So Chris, jump into it. What's session 1 look like?
Yeah. So session 1, we're going to be working on some lifting. So if you were at last camp, we worked on the snatch in the first session. So naturally in our first session, this camp, we're going to be working on the clean and jerk. We're going to be working on both the clean and the jerk, as it's often put together, not only obviously in an Olympic lifting meet, but in a CrossFit competition as well. And so we're going to be working on both Olympic lifts and then transitioning from that into more barbell cycling. So last camp, we, again, worked exclusively on snatch. So we snatched heavy, and then we worked on various techniques of cycling a snatch, how to do them, when to do them, what loads to look at. This time we're going to be looking at cycling a shoulder to overhead and how to effectively cycle a barbell from your shoulders to over your head, when to use what techniques, and how to preserve, certain muscle groups or areas of your body while doing that. And then we're going to be combining that with maybe some ins and outs of the shuttle run, which was introduced to the open season last year. And so broad perspective, obviously you touched on wanting to help competitive athletes. And a lot of what we're going over are movements that you're most likely going to see in the open season. So open and quarterfinals, but also some common movements you'll see in some higher level competitions. And so being able to, it sounds silly, the technique behind a shuttle run, right? But
the more you do them, the more you realize you can be efficient or you cannot be, just like anything else.
Right. It's like very similar to the burpee variations, right? The people at the top are paying attention how to do them efficiently, and the people who are not at the top probably aren't. And so being able to add a little tweak here or there to be more efficient to them is going to help you gain seconds over time. So that's kind of the ins and outs of the first session. Is very, very barbell focused. Getting heavy with the clean and jerk, and then cycling a shoulder to overhead, as well as some points in a shuttle run.
Let's tease the workout because the itinerary is released. We'll also link to that in the show notes so people can actually see the minute by minute breakdown, maybe not minute by minute, but pretty detailed breakdown of camp, local stuff that you could do. I put in there some of my favorite coffee shops and eating joints and stuff. So check it out. So the conditioning aspect of this is sort of the application phase, the last kind of step in the process after we've gone over some of the technique. And obviously got to basically max out your clean jerk. Mm-hmm. Now it's 2, 2, 2, 3 intervals. So those are minutes. So 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest, 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest, 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest, and 3 minutes of work. That's how that is structured. It's a 12 shuttle run buy-in with the remaining time you have max shoulder to overhead at 135.95. Every time you pick up that bar, though, you have to do a squat clean into that first rep, and you have to advance the bar every 10 reps. So it's 4 times to get to 50 reps, or if you get capped, you're done at that point. I think this one's gonna be super fun. I actually did it the other day in my training, and I won't tell people where I got to, but it was spicy. That buy-in, you got to go hard.
Yeah, that's kind of the purpose there, right? Is we've seen some interval format workouts make their way into the open, into the quarterfinals, and into the games, right? And so being able to appropriately approach one of those interval style metcons is going to be super important. But then, like we talked about, being able to execute on the skills we go over with how to effectively cycle a shoulder to overhead movement, as well as the shuttle run, will be super helpful.
Yeah. So that's quite the combo between maxing out and then going into that. I think it's going to be super fun and good kickoff to camp. Our next session, I'm going to be going over legless rope climbs and GHDs. Again, these are 2 movements that we've seen, or the legless rope climbs was primarily in the age group qualifiers from last year, but I think oftentimes they kind of use that stuff to kind of try a little bit more for the individual divisions. So I would not be shocked at all if we saw legless rope climb in quarterfinals. Certainly when you get to semifinals level, that's going to be frequently tested. So legless rope climbs and GHDs, which we obviously saw the last 2 years in quarterfinals, which is going to probably be a staple, because now that they're requiring it, more and more people are getting them, which just means that you're going to see them programmed more and more. So those 2 movements we're going to have, I'm going to be basically going over some of the points of performance of things that you can think about when you're unfatigued versus fatigued, like how that changes kipping mechanics for things like a legless rope climb, simple things like how you're actually descending on the rope. We went over just like a regular rope climb last camp, and it was like, something that you could tell a lot of people didn't put enough time into, especially the descent. And I think that's also true for legless rope climb. So we'll make sure to go over, basically the kip, and then the descent to make sure you're doing that efficiently and you can get through as many reps as you can. Then for the GHD, some of the big things are like the GHD setup, because I see people get that wrong a lot, or maybe just not as efficient as they could be if they change their setup. Simple things like where you're looking, how you're breathing, if you're taking a single breath versus 2 breaths, and where you're doing that throughout the movement. If you're bending your arms a lot and like externally rotating to reach back versus kind of keeping your arms straighter, almost like an ab mat sit up. Simple things like that. Even like what you do with your knees, like are you trying to actively extend them versus kind of let them be bent a little bit more? Simple things like that make a big difference when you're going over 150 reps or 180 like we saw in the other year for quarterfinals. Is a ton of reps. So it's just an important thing to do. And then we're going to go into an EMOM after that. That's basically is a big rotating EMOM that allows people to get some practice on legless rope climbs, GHDs, but then some other movements thrown in that are sort of midline centric, that don't like put a lot of fatigue into the system for the pulling, but make it a little bit more applicable to what you're actually going to see.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, I think the GHD setup has been in the last 2 years. Will we see it again? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that they continue to include it, and that it's essentially almost always included at the semifinal level, the games level, you're going to see it at those.
Yeah. Just the fact that it's on a quarterfinals list, like the equipment list, will mean that a lot of other competitions that are off season are going to follow suit and put that on their equipment list. So even if you say you don't care about quarterfinals, or you're a master's athlete or something, and that's, going to go beyond that, it's like, it's still important to have that just for that sake.
Right. Exactly.
Cool, man. You're up. Session 3.
So session 3, we're going to be doing more gymnastic stuff. So the focus of that session is going to be bar muscle ups and parallel handstand push-ups. So we're going to take the time to kind of break down each. As far as the bar muscle up is concerned, again, another movement that's been a staple at the open level, the quarterfinals level, the age group semifinals level. I believe the age group last year even had a section that was like what was it, like max bar muscle ups left in like,
Yeah, it was handstand walk, GHD, or flip flop those GHD, handstand walk, GHD, handstand walk, and then bar muscle ups in the remaining time.
yeah. And so, have being able to do those under fatigue, kind of the major cues or focus points is huge, right? Because when you're tired, you don't want to be focusing on the fact that you're breathing heavy and tired. You want to focus on the fact that, like, all right, drive my hips, press down through the bar, stuff like that, to make sure you're focused on the task at hand versus how fatigued you are. And then the parallel handstand push-ups, I don't know if that's something we'll see at this level. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility, being that it's super easy to build parallettes out of like PVC pipe, and you just set it up as a deficit. So maybe not, but I did a local comp. I want to say last year, maybe the year before that had parallel handstand push-ups in it. And so it's something that at a local comp level or like a qualifier comp level, you could definitely see those involved.
Yeah. And even like a bigger deficit handstand push-up where you're just putting your hand flat on some plates, that if you know how to parallel handstand push-up and you're comfortable doing that, that's going to become way easier. Right. It's just like going from deficit handstand push-ups to flat handstand push-ups. It's like, oh, this is way easier now.
Right. And so you're going to get a lot of skill transfer there. So
yeah,
we're going to be going over the fine points of that, especially because the kip and the parallel, if you've never done parallel handstand push-ups before, the kip is a little bit different than your standard handstand push-up. And so if you're utilizing the same kip, like I did the first time I ever did it, like you're going to get half a press and kind of like fall back down under your head.
Yeah. I actually had you coaching me up on this the other couple months ago at this point now, but it was like, I really hadn't done many of them at all. And I was like, I went to do it and I was doing some super deep parallel handstand push-ups. And I was like, man, this kip just like, it's like, I'm just like stopping with my elbows at like 4 inches and I'm just pressing out every time. I was like, Chris, help.
Yeah. So, yeah.
No, the stuff that you told me was super helpful and I cleaned it up really quickly. So I'm excited for you to work with some people on it.
Heck yeah, man. And then the workout we're going to do from the application standpoint is kind of in the realm of that age group workout we talked about. So it's going to be every 3 minutes by 4 sets, but it's kind of like a 2 minute on, 1 minute off format. So it's going to be 50 double unders, 25 wall balls, and then max bar muscle ups in the remainder of that 2 minute window. And again, the focus on that is to, when you get to the bar, is to really have the athletes push the sets that they're holding there. So they can really work on the skills we go over in the first part, right? Really push to make sure to look at, okay, as I'm tired, can I hang on to this bar, and then executing on the cues we've given them in that set. So that's kind of what we're going to look for. I think that'll be a fun little workout. I think for folks who are super fit, they're going to get a ton of bar muscle practice. And for the people who are maybe not quite there yet, that's okay, because you're still going to get a chance to at least get a couple and continue to work on those skills.
Yeah. And if you're someone who like the deep parallettes are going to just be like really tough, or if bar muscle ups aren't a skill that you have yet, obviously we're going to work with you and figure out what's going to be a good option that you can still start developing the skill to get there without just being like, oh, like we'll scale you back, but at the same time allowing you to actually get some quality work in.
Yeah, and that's where with the parallel handstand push-ups specifically, we'll probably do some sort of EMOM work or pure skill work, because that's a movement that I feel like, and I could be wrong on this, but I feel like that's a movement, unless you've done some high level competition already, it's not really in your repertoire of things like you're working on necessarily.
Yeah. Probably doesn't need to be either necessarily.
Exactly. Right. And so
it's okay to scale it back. Yeah.
Right. But part of the nice part about camps is you get to touch on skills that maybe you don't in your normal training, to work on them. Right. And so we'll do some skill work to work on the cues we go over for that.
Yeah. Yeah, those intervals are going to get spicy quick. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Then session 4 is going to be the name game. We're not going to tell you what it is. I will post a teaser the week before. We will tell you that the name of it is Alter Ego, and that it has 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Part 1 is Bruce Banner. Part 2 is the Hulk. So
take your guesses.
Let us know what you think. But no, basically what we're going to do is we'll release the workout basically have people go over it. We're not going to give you a ton of strategy at the beginning, basically allowing you to sort of formulate a pacing and, break strategy that makes sense for you. And then we'll obviously take you through a warm up that we've already kind of written out beforehand so that you're not just blindly going into that. But then after the actual workout, we're going to take some time for reflection and breakdown and basically like debriefing and saying like, hey, what things worked well, what could you maybe have shifted or done differently for next time? Because in this sport, there is still an element of like, sometimes if you're at a competition, they're like, hey, we're not releasing this workout until the end. Like, these are the 4 workouts. We'll have a 5th workout that's a final. We're not releasing that until 30 minutes beforehand. You got to figure it out with your the strategy that makes sense. Or, at the games, this happens all the time. Or it used to happen even more where like Castro would walk out on the floor and be like, all right, and this is the event. And he would like tell them verbally what it is, and they'd have to go do it like 20 seconds later or something, right? Like ridiculous. So there still is an element of being able to pace a little bit by feel and kind of go on the fly. It's not quite to that degree here, but I think it is still an important skill to have.
Yeah. And I think it's also an important skill because not just from that perspective of getting a workout you don't know and having to go off of how you feel, but also I think we've all been in a workout where you strategize it one way, you get going and you hit the like, oh no, this is not feel the way I expected it. Right. And so people who get into that point who can still salvage a workout, right, are the ones who have various degrees and speeds to go to. They have a toolbox to be able to say like, okay, this is kind of the pacing I can go to. This is how I could do. And they can do that mid-workout. And the people who don't have that end up just panicking and dying. And so, and we've all seen that where it's like they got punched in the mouth by a workout. It's not what they expect. And then it's like a fish floundering on the floor.
Yeah, it's literally like there's 2 speeds. It's either like the speed that I normally go out for whatever movement, or it's like I'm like hands on knees, resting, questioning my life right now.
Right. And so that's a skill that permeates through the sport, and being able to go to that. Obviously, if you don't know the workout, which is super common, right? From a local comp or standpoint, you don't know the final workout, right? And then it gets announced and you got to figure it out. Or, from a age group perspective or quarterfinals perspective, right? The workouts get announced, but it's still not that much time. Like if you're a normal like person with
day, maybe.
Yeah. So if you're a normal person with a full-time job, and it's like, I mean, this happened to maybe one of my clients last year. It's like, okay, well, I got this day to do it.
Yeah.
And so you don't have the opportunity to have these multiple breakdowns. I'll try this strategy this time. I'll try this strategy this time. And so being able to formulate that quickly is a good skill to have for the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even if you're working with a coach, it's like that coach might be like, if it's the Open, they have a roster of athletes that are also under their, like they're coaching them still. So it's like they have a lot of people that are responsible for. So it's like you might not be able to just like call them up and have a long conversation about like what the workout should be, right? Like they may be able to can give you like some tips, some ideas, and maybe some like general strategy, or like, for example, like our company will probably release something that's around, this sort of thing, like a conversation around the workout. But it's still an important skill. And if you're someone who's just like following like a blog or like coaching yourself, like this is exactly what you have to do. Then it's like you have to formulate it on your own and figure it out, because no one's going to help you out with that process unless you got someone who is acting as a coach. So yeah, definitely transferable.
Cool, man. I'm excited for camp number 2.
Yeah, I'm really excited to obviously have people at the facility and, check it out. But also it's like my hometown now. So it's, I can help people out a little bit more. I mean, you were able to do this at the last one where basically it's like, hey, like I know what's around here, and like to help you, like, point people to the right directions and stuff. So really looking forward to it. Getting some more hands-on athletes, so to speak.
For sure.
Cool, man. We'll see you there.
You got it. See you guys then.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just found the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while and enjoying what you're hearing, I would encourage you to leave a rating or review for the show. It would definitely help us out. And lastly, if you're someone who does take your fitness seriously and cares about your performance deeply, I would encourage you to look into hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.